Welcome to the channel. So Christmas is a time when we are all busy and don't always have time to do extra things, especially when it comes to cooking and baking. Today, I've got a no-bake pie that only has 5 ingredients. It's gluten-free, so you're covered there, and it looks super easy to make, and it's gonna fit the season. Let's make a gluten-free eggnog pie. I'm Jamie with SavorySaver. I share gluten-free recipes, tips, tricks, and resources to make your gluten-free lifestyle easier. So please consider hitting subscribe and let's get started. So before we actually put our pie together, that's just gonna take a couple minutes. The biggest thing you're gonna need to wait on is the pie chilling down and firming up. So that's gonna take a little bit of time, but the crust I'm using is one that I've already made. This is Martha Stewart's gluten-free pie crust, and I will link to that video as well. I've made this ahead of time. It had to cool completely, and you may have a pie crust recipe that you like and don't need the recipe for this. So if you need this recipe, go back and watch that video. If you don't, then here's how to make the pie. So this is a super easy recipe to put together, and it's not gonna take you long. It is gonna take time to firm back up in the fridge. I looked at multiple recipes. They all say about 4 hours. So I am gonna taste this, but it may be tomorrow before I actually get to film my reaction with this pie, just because by the time it chills, it's gonna be this evening, and Tara's gonna be home, and Oliver's gonna be home, and so it's a little louder in the house in the evenings, and we have stuff to get done, so I may have to sneak a piece tomorrow to try for you guys. So ingredient number 1 is 1.5 cups of eggnog, of course. We're making an eggnog pie. So the next ingredient is instant pudding. I'm using vanilla flavored, and there are no ingredients listed on here that contain gluten, but definitely make sure, especially celiac, that your pudding is gluten-free. You do want the instant pudding and not the stovetop pudding. So make sure you're looking for the no-cook variety. I'm gonna add that to it. And of course, the eggnog is in place of the milk that would typically make pudding. And we're actually using a little less. We're using 1.5 cups of eggnog instead of the typical 2 cups. I'm also gonna add a little bit of nutmeg. The recipe says a dash, so use your judgment. A dash is about 1/8 of a teaspoon, a little less. But if you like nutmeg, of course, go heavier on it. Next, I've got my hand mixer, and the recipes I look at say to mix everything up until it's thick. Typical instant pudding mix is about 2 minutes. So I'm gonna do 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I have mixed this for the full 2 minutes. It is super thick, as you can see. So I think we are good. It's nice and golden because of the eggnog, plus the vanilla has some coloring in it, which has made it that way as well. Let's get our final ingredient added. The final ingredient is, of course, Cool Whip or non-dairy topping, whatever you want to call it. I'm using the extra creamy. The only thing I could find in the recipes that said not to use was the light, because there could be some issues with the pie setting up. I also looked at multiple recipes. The one I'm using uses 2 cups of Cool Whip. One of the recipes I looked at used a little more eggnog and about 1 cup of Cool Whip instead. So I'm going to use 2 cups. This has about 3 cups in it. So I'm gonna add most of the container. I'm not gonna measure because I don't think it needs to be measured. There's some left for the top of the pie. Let's get it folded in until everything is blended. And of course, folding is coming up from the bottom, going to the top and pushing back down through. Folding is gonna help keep the pie fluffy, just like it does if you're folding in egg whites. It keeps those egg whites full of air. And I'm just gonna keep doing it until everything's the same color and I don't have any streaks of gold or white. So I feel that everything looks like it's the same color. So let's get this transferred to our pie shell. This pie shell is a deep dish. The recipe didn't say whether you should use deep dish or standard, so this is deep dish. I figure it'll give me a little bit extra room. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I'm sure since I did that, it's not gonna fill up the pie shell because that's how things work. Let's get everything spread out. so we can see how short the crust is, and it just broke. So here's our pie crust filled. There is an inch or so all the way around that it could be filled up more. So the easy solution would be to actually do it in a smaller pie pan. The other solution would be to buy 2 things of Cool Whip or make your own whipped cream and top the entire thing with whipped cream before serving. Then you don't have to worry about the big gap. So let's get this chilled down. Takes about 4 hours according to the recipes I've looked at. And once it's chilled down and firmed up, we'll give it a taste. All right, guys, it is the next day. Here is the pie, a little bit of Cool Whip on top. As you can see by the crust, there's a huge gap here. Now, in the original recipe I used, it actually looked like a deep dish pie. Not so much there. It looks very much like it's a regular dish pie. So you're gonna need to make that judgment call on what pie crust size you're gonna use. I would say, looking at this, that you just need a regular standard pie dish. Everything firmed up nicely, Cool Whip on the top. If you saw me make this crust video, then it actually did pretty good. I am gonna show this piece because it does crumble a little bit around the edge, but regular pies with crust with gluten in there do the same thing. So don't worry about that too much. As far as the pie crust itself, it actually worked really well. So check out that video if you're looking for a gluten-free pie crust. Now let's try it. This has got a good taste if you like eggnog. If you don't like eggnog, you're not gonna like this pie, because I actually don't get much vanilla pudding taste. I get more eggnog taste. It's super creamy. And guys, I'm not a big Cool Whip fan on things. I like a Cool Whip in things, but honestly, I'd rather have real whipped cream. But I like that little bit of creaminess, extra creaminess added on top of this pudding style pie. The crust is good. It's got a decent taste. I don't really know what else to say. It did cut very well. I just used a sharp, straight edged knife, no serrated knife or anything. It did cut straight through. It went through the crust. I didn't have a lot of breakage once I got through that edge of the crust. So easy to make, just a few ingredients. Not super hard to make it gluten-free as long as you have a gluten-free pie crust. So that's all I've got for today. Please leave any comments below. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.